Summer in Aruba by Audrey Sinclair. The warm breeze off the Caribbean Sea brushed against Sophia's face as she stood barefoot in the sand, gazing out at the turquoise water that stretched endlessly before her. Aruba was nothing like home, but maybe that was exactly what she needed this summer. So the stress of work, the noise of the city, the constant rush, they had all pushed her to the edge. And when her friends invited her on a spontaneous getaway, she said yes without hesitation. Now, she was standing on one of the most beautiful beaches she had ever seen, surrounded by the sound of waves gently lapping at the shore, the smell of salt water in the air, and the laughter of her friends behind her. If you keep staring out at the ocean like that, you might miss the sunset, came a voice from behind her. Sophia turned to find Ethan, her friend's brother, standing a few feet away, a teasing smile on his face. He had arrived only the day before, another last-minute addition to the trip. And while she'd only met him a couple of times over the years, he was easy to talk to, and even easier to look at. "I'm not missing anything," Sophia said with a grin. "The sunset will still be there. It always is." Ethan shrugged, stepping beside her. "True, but there's something about the sunsets here that feels different." Sophia glanced at him. The sun was casting a golden glow over his face. She had to admit he was right. Everything here felt different. The island seemed to have its own rhythm, one that slowed down time, made every moment feel more vibrant, more alive. Maybe that's why she had started to relax after just a few days. "I needed this trip," she said quietly, surprising even herself by the admission. Ethan looked at her, his eyes softening. "Yeah, I could tell. You've been wound up pretty tight." Sophia raised an eyebrow at him. "Have I now?" He smiled, not in a teasing way, but in a way that made her feel seen. "Yeah, I noticed." She didn't know what to say to that, so instead she turned back toward the ocean. The sun was beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting a brilliant array of pinks and oranges across the horizon. She could feel the tension she had carried with her from New York slowly melting away, like ice under the warm Aruban sun. "Come on," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "I know a spot where the view is even better." Sophia hesitated for only a second before nodding and following him down the beach. They walked in comfortable silence, the sand cool under their feet now that the sun was setting. Ethan led her to a cluster of rocks at the far end of the beach, just where the land jutted out into the sea. He climbed up with an easy grace, then turned to offer her his hand. She took it, feeling a small jolt at the contact, and let him help her up. Once they were both seated on the rocks, with the ocean stretched out before them and the sky burning with the last light of the day, Sophia felt a sense of peace settle over her. "You were right," she said softly. "This is better." Ethan smiled but didn't say anything. They sat in silence for a while, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a trail of color that slowly faded into twilight. The stars began to twinkle overhead, and the night air grew cooler. "Do you miss home?" Sophia asked after a while, surprising herself again with how comfortable she felt asking him such a personal question. Ethan shrugged. "Sometimes, but I've always liked being out of my comfort zone, traveling. Seeing new places, it's like you get to leave everything behind for a little while and just be." Sophia nodded, understanding that feeling more than ever now. "That's what I was hoping for when I came here," she admitted. "A break from everything?" Ethan looked at her thoughtfully. "Did you find it?" Sophia thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "I think I'm getting there." The days that followed were filled with sun-soaked afternoons and lazy evenings. Sophia and Ethan found themselves spending more time together, walking along the beach, exploring the little markets in town, sharing quiet conversations over drinks. As the sun set, there was an ease between them that surprised her. She hadn't expected to connect with him like this, but there was something about being away from the pressures of real life that made it easier to open up. One morning, Ethan suggested they try snorkeling. Sophia was hesitant at first, having never done it before, but Ethan's enthusiasm was infectious. They rented equipment from a beachside shop and waded into the crystal-clear waters of Boca Catalina. As they swam side by side, Sophia was amazed by the vibrant underwater world that opened up before her. Schools of tropical fish darted around them, their bright colors flashing in the sunlight that filtered through the water. Ethan pointed out different species, his eyes bright with excitement behind his mask. At one point, a sea turtle glided gracefully past them. Sophia's heart raced with a mixture of awe and exhilaration. She turned to Ethan, who was watching her reaction with a smile. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the ocean, Sophia felt a connection to him that went beyond mere attraction. Later, as they lounged on the beach, catching their breath and letting the sun dry their skin, Sophia couldn't stop smiling. "That was incredible," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "Thank you for convincing me to try it." Ethan grinned. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. There's something magical about seeing that world for the first time, isn't there?" Sophia nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. "It's like discovering a whole new part of yourself." Ethan's eyes softened as he looked at her. "You know, that's exactly how I feel about this trip. About getting to know you." Sophia felt her heart skip a beat at his words. She was about to respond when their friends called out to them, inviting them to join a beach volleyball game. The moment passed, but the feeling lingered, a quiet anticipation building between them. As the days went by, Sophia and Ethan continued to explore the island together. They hiked through a Rakak National Park, marveling at the rugged beauty of the landscape. The contrast between the desert-like terrain and the turquoise sea in the distance was breathtaking. As they stood atop a hill, overlooking the coastline, Ethan reached out and took Sophia's hand. It felt natural, as if they'd been doing it for years. One evening, they decided to take a sunset sailing trip. The catamaran glided smoothly through the water, the sky ablaze with colors as the sun sank towards the horizon. Sophia leaned against the railing, feeling the gentle sea breeze on her face. Ethan stood beside her, their shoulders touching. "You know," he said softly, "I've traveled to a lot of places, but there's something special about Aruba. Or maybe it's the company." Sophia turned to look at him, her heart racing. "I know what you mean. I never expected to feel this way on a vacation." Ethan's hand found hers on the railing. "Feel what way?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia took a deep breath. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Ethan's eyes searched hers for a moment before he leaned in. Their lips met in a gentle kiss, soft and sweet, filled with the promise of something more. When they pulled apart, Sophia felt breathless, but in the best possible way. "Was that okay?" Ethan asked, his voice low. Sophia smiled, feeling a rush of warmth that had nothing to do with the tropical evening. "Yeah, that was more than okay." As the catamaran made its way back to shore, Sophia and Ethan remained close, talking softly and sharing occasional kisses. The world seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them, the sea and the starry sky above. The next day, they decided to explore the colorful streets of Oranjestad, Aruba's capital. They wandered through the local markets, admiring the vibrant artwork and handcrafted jewelry. Ethan bought Sophia a delicate silver bracelet with a tiny seashell charm, slipping it onto her wrist with a soft kiss. As they strolled along the harbor, watching the boats bob gently in the water, Sophia felt a pang of sadness. "I can't believe we only have a few days left," she said, leaning into Ethan's side. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Let's make the most of them, then. What else is on your Aruba bucket list?" Sophia thought for a moment. "I've always wanted to try windsurfing, but I'm a little scared, to be honest." Ethan's face lit up. "That's perfect. I used to windsurf all the time when I was younger. I'd love to teach you." The next morning found them at Palm Beach, where the constant trade winds made for ideal windsurfing conditions. Ethan was patient as he explained the basics to Sophia on the sand, showing her how to maneuver the sail and balance on the board. Their first attempts in the water were less than graceful. Sophia fell more times than she could count, but Ethan was always there to help her up, his encouragement never wavering. By the afternoon, she had managed to stay upright for short stretches, the exhilaration of gliding across the water making her laugh with pure joy. As the sun began to set, they returned to shore, exhausted but happy. They collapsed onto the sand, still catching their breath. "You're a natural," Ethan said, grinning at Sophia. "A few more days and you'll be out sailing me." Sophia laughed. "I doubt that. But thank you for teaching me. It was amazing." Ethan propped himself up on one elbow, looking at her intently. "You're amazing," he said softly. "I've never met anyone quite like you, Sophia." She felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "I feel the same way about you," she admitted. "I keep thinking about what happens when we leave Aruba." Ethan reached out, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "We don't have to figure everything out right now. Let's just enjoy the moment." Sophia nodded, leaning in to kiss him. As their lips met, she could taste the salt on his skin, feel the warmth of the setting sun on her back. In that moment, she felt truly alive. Their last full day in Aruba dawned bright and clear. They decided to make the most of it by taking a jeep tour around the island, exploring some of the more remote areas they hadn't yet seen. As they bounced along dirt roads, the wind whipping through their hair, Sophia felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. They stopped at the ruins of an old gold mill, learning about the island's history from their guide. As they walked among the stone structures, Ethan took Sophia's hand, intertwining their fingers. "You know," he said, "I'm really glad my sister invited me on this trip at the last minute." Sophia squeezed his hand. "Me too. I can't imagine what this vacation would have been like without you." Their final stop was the natural pool, a hidden gem on the island's rugged northeastern coast. They hiked down to the secluded spot, marveling at the way the volcanic rock formation created a natural swimming area, protected from the crashing waves beyond. As they floated in the cool water surrounded by the dramatic landscape, Sophia felt a profound sense of peace. She realized that she didn't want this to end when they left Aruba. That evening, they joined their friends for a farewell dinner at a small restaurant nestled near the edge of the water. The place was lit with string lights, the tables draped with white cloths that fluttered gently in the breeze. There was a sense of nostalgia in the air, a bittersweet acknowledgement that their time on the island was coming to an end. As they ate and reminisced about their favorite moments from the trip, Sophia found herself stealing glances at Ethan. He caught her eye more than once, offering a soft smile that made her heart flutter. After dinner, Ethan caught Sophia's hand and nodded toward the beach. She didn't hesitate to follow him. The moon was full, casting a silver glow over the sand and the water. They walked in silence for a while, the only sound the gentle lapping of the waves at their feet. "I'm really glad you came on this trip," Ethan said quietly. Sophia smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the tropical air. "I'm glad I came too." They stopped walking, and Ethan turned to face her. His expression was serious, but there was something soft in his eyes. "This place, it changes you, doesn't it?" Sophia nodded. "Yeah, it does." For a moment, they just stood there, the waves washing over their feet, the stars twinkling above. Sophia could feel her heart beating faster, but in a good way. In a way that made her feel alive, in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. Ethan took a step closer, his hand reaching out to gently brush a strand of hair from her face. "You look happy," he said softly. "I am," she whispered, realizing it was the truth. "Sophia," Ethan began, his voice low and earnest. "I know we've only known each other for a short time, but these past 2 weeks they've been incredible. I don't want this to end when we go back home." Sophia felt her breath catch in her throat. "I don't want it to end either," she admitted. Ethan's face broke into a wide smile. "So, what do you say? Should we give this a shot in the real world?" Instead of answering, Sophia closed the distance between them, kissing him with all the emotion that had been building over the past 2 weeks. Ethan responded immediately, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her close. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Sophia couldn't stop smiling. "I'd say that's a yes," she said. Ethan laughed, the sound full of joy and promise. "I was hoping you'd say that." They spent the rest of the evening walking along the beach, talking about their lives back home and making plans to see each other once they returned. As the night grew late, they found themselves back at the spot on the rocks where they had watched the sunset on that first evening. Sitting close together, their hands intertwined, they watched as the moon cast its silver light over the water. Sophia leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder, feeling a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. "You know," she said softly, "I came to Aruba looking for a break from my life. I never expected to find a new beginning." Ethan pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never see coming. As they sat there, the sound of the waves a gentle backdrop to their quiet conversation, Sophia felt a sense of excitement for the future. She knew that leaving Aruba would be bittersweet, but she was no longer afraid of returning to her life back home, because now she had someone to look forward to. The island had worked its magic, not just in helping her relax and recharge, but in opening her heart to new possibilities. As she gazed out at the starry sky, Sophia silently thanked Aruba for giving her this unexpected gift. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she was ready to face them, with the memory of these perfect summer days and Ethan by her side.